Thank you, Councillor Rudolph, and thank you, Royce. I do have a question, and then if you look at the report, I probably directed probably to Royce, or I see Derek Moody is on the line with us this morning. I think probably the question will be, if you look at the report, it sees that most of the land we have, it's on the north and the northwest. If we look at a citywide and rural perspective, I don't think there is balance in land supply. Am I reading this right? Or if you look at Greeley per se, or you look at Cumberland area in the East End, and you look at in Richmond and Richmond and Manotick, I see the supply is more. So are we really driving the development industry to only go into one area because we are really stopping the growth in other villages? And that's what it's creating to myself. If you look at some villages in the rural area, and you can't say all the villages look the same because each one of them has a different unique characterism. If you look at Richmond, are different than Manotick different than Greeley different than Osgood different than Bars and other area. So are we looking at the balance in the whole rural area, or we're just looking in specific area? And I understand you're going to tell me, yes, we do have enough supply citywide, but am I asking you, my question is, do we have enough sufficient supply across the board in the rural area?
So, Chair, as the report has concluded, there is sufficient supply across the rural area, both within villages and outside of villages. The draw to the growth for the villages is really drawn by those villages that have the services. And that really creates sort of, when a village has services, it creates an imbalance versus a village that doesn't have services. So that's why we see the largest villages is the draw for that growth, and will continue to be the draw for the growth. We can certainly, through the next official plan review, look at an area approach. However, we do have villages that came to us from amalgamation. We do have villages that have supply. So that's one thing we could look at, is to see how that supply can be further used for housing. But as Lorraine had indicated earlier, a lot of that comes from the landowners, and when they're ready to move on using that supply.
Thank you for the answer. I understand and I appreciate your answer, but my really concern, and not only myself, and I'm going to leave this topic, probably I'm going to make some comments on it, but I'm going to also leave it to the Rural Summit, because we've been going around and talking to the resident in the Rural Summit, and we're understanding this. It's consistent. We can hear it from our rural resident. We're not telling you open up the floodgate, and we're not talking about let's put a house in every corner, but resident, they want to move to rural area, they want to have the choices, and they want to be able to say where they want to move, and where the developer want to build. Not it's what we're telling them where they want to build. But these conversations, I'm sure it will be coming in the future. That's what we've been hearing throughout our Rural Summit. But before I close my comment, I'm going to let Councillor Kit ask her question.
Thank you, Chair. It's similar to my first question, but perhaps better suited to you, Royce. I think it would be prudent to look at villages across the city in the next official plan update. But I guess my question is what the concern we're expressing today, where all of the growth for the rural area is being concentrated in 1 or 2 or 3 villages, is that a concern on the staff side as well? Like when you're thinking about making villages a 15-minute community, we know that there's, generational turnover that happens. We've seen examples of villages like Sarsfield lose their school, or, a community, a rural village lose their bank. And that leaves a big void in sort of that 15-minute ideal. Is that something that on the staff side, there's a concern and something that, we could maybe better look at going forward?
I think, Chair, the official plan clearly directs the bulk of the growth to those service villages like Richmond, Manotick, or Carp. I think the point that the councillor raises is completely valid from an economic development perspective. Those other villages are allocated or anticipated to see some growth as well, though albeit not at the same scale as the serviced villages. And it is important for those villages to have the opportunity to grow. I think if we look at some of it, and I think what the finding of this report is that all of the villages do have land available within them to grow. And one that I'll point to as an example, village of Kenmore. I don't think we would categorize it as a high growth area, but there's well over 50 acres of land available in the village of boundary of Kenmore that could be developed if there was, a market, a market demand for it, or property owners that were, looking to advance that development opportunity. And I think that's where some of that challenge lies, is that there is land in the villages that could be developed, but for various reasons, and that it could be, the property owners have different interests. They may still be interested in farming the land as opposed to developing it. There may not be a significant market demand in some of our villages as we get sometimes further out from the city core. Those lands aren't advancing in some of those villages, and it is a concern for sure that if they stagnate too long, we do see that reduction in services, and we do see that reduction in overall interest in that. It gets harder to get that momentum going in some of those communities if they stagnate for too long.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. I'm usually talking about how fast my community is growing. So two hats today, but appreciate those responses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kit. So since we're on that topic, an official plan, remind me if I'm correct, Royce, didn't we have a language concerning carp and greely in this official plan, and we're supposed to do work that it's been done already, and there's some language included in this official plan?
Sorry, Chair, can you just clarify, are you asking if the official plan has specific wording with regards to the 4 largest villages, or is it in regards to something more specific to a review?
So something more specific in greely and carp. I know there is a language was provided in this official plan to look at those villages. Am I correct on that one, or?
So if there's nothing in the official plan that speaks to reviewing those villages, however, as part of the official plan review, as part of the work plan that the department put forth for this term of council, our branch, our department will be undertaking a review of the village plans in 2025.
Thank you. And to add to comments what I hear from my council colleague, and I know that Councillor Kit hit a little bit about it. I mean, we don't always have to be reactive. So it's good the city of Ottawa to be a little bit more proactive. We're looking, since COVID, people really want to move and come live in rural villages and rural area. But if you look at what's happening in rural villages, we can see the services is declining, from banks, from doctors, dentists, whatever you want. Like, we're preaching about 15-minute community, but yet we're not trying to cater and deliver services. And I think basically, I'm not saying the city failed the rural resident, but I'm thinking we're not really proactively, our official plan is not really delivering and catering for what is our villages changes since COVID. And the reason why I'm saying that, because I'm not blaming things at the official plan. Before COVID, things was different. And after COVID, our official plan is not reacting to what's in reality happening right now in the rural villages. So we've seen declining in services, we've seen declining in amenity, but yet we don't see people want to move to rural area, but they don't have the ability because of the processes. And this is a common, I'm just generally what we're hearing, and I'm bringing it to your attention and bring it today because we have that report on front of us. And I think it's an opportunity for rural resident and the rural communities to come together as rural councillor through our rural summit and then hearing more. So we're encouraging the people and the residents to really come out to those event and rural summit that we're doing. But I also want to make it, I want to make sure staff hearing us and highlighting that what you're hearing today from councillors, it will be coming soon to the table. And I'm hoping if it's going to be another round for our official plan to wait, but at least we need to prepare that work ahead and planting the seed. So I want to make sure we're delivering and catering to rural residents, rural areas, balancing the need in every rural village, not only one. And if you, to comment on the rural villages, and I understand, Mr. Moody, you brought a Kenmore per se. And if you look at the villages, you look at in Osgood, I said it and I say it every time. They're not all the same. You got to look at them and keep the rural characterism inside them. But also we want to make sure they're not declining for services. People in the rural area, they don't want to go to Barhaven every day to shop. So we need to kind of cater to them some kind of services, and they don't lose even the services that they have today. That's what we've seen in rural villages. In my ward, in Councillor Kitt's ward, and every rural councillor, they can tell you the same thing. So I'm hoping our message is coming loud and clear to the city staff to say, hey, we need to start giving some attention to rural villages, and we always say the cookie, one size doesn't fit all, and we need to look at all our villages to give them fair shot to making sure they be vibrant, like we keep talking about our rural villages are vibrant. So this is my comment for this morning for that report. I hope I appreciate the presentation and I appreciate the questions and answer, but I want to make sure, put it on record, our rural residents, that's what they've been telling us, and this is their voices coming through Agricultural Effort Committee to let staff knows what we're looking for. Thank you.